Good afternoon, everybody, and thanks for tuning in. John Kelly, profiler here, and welcome. Welcome to our show today, and I want to say that everybody's innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. Today is a show we're going to be doing on a case that's very, very close to my heart and the heart of our team, and I know it's very close to the heart of our guest today. And we are so honored to have today investigator Tim McGuigan, who played such an important role in the Molly Bish case and helping Molly come home. If it wasn't for Tim McGuigan, I truly believe Molly would have never been found and have brought home. With that being said, I'd like to move forward and talk to my friend, colleague, and one of the finest investigators I've run into in my career. I mean, he didn't stop. Believe me when I tell you, this guy did not stop, and hard work definitely pays off. Timmy McGuigan, good morning. How are you? And it's so good to see you. It's been a long time.
Morning, John. I'm doing fine. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. I couldn't be better. Life's great. New career. Married, life moves on. It's hard to believe it's been 20 years, John. But you've been a good friend, and I appreciate all those kind words, sir.
Yeah, and 20 years. I mean, I can't believe either that 20 years has gone by. And I think it's important for me to bring out to the audience on how this exactly went. And on our team, we have a team member by the name of Ruth Moore, and she is a psychiatric nurse specialist. And she was almost abducted, fought her way out of it many, many decades ago, many years ago, up in Massachusetts when she was a little girl. That being said, going back 20 years ago, you might remember, Timmy, you had the W murders going on up around Massachusetts and through Massachusetts, okay? It was throughout the state. You had Wellesley, Walpole, Westwood, and then all of a sudden, a tiny town popped up called Warren, okay? So all these towns began with a W. So
Right.
Ruth is watching this go on the news, through the newspaper, and she calls me up, she says, John, listen, we pretty much have somebody up there, and it looks like a serial, and he's focused on towns to begin with a W. It looks like that's some type of signature to him or some kind of MO or something like that. She said, John, please take a look at it. Please look into it. So I talked to the rest of the team. Everybody agreed. We looked into it. And in the tiny town of Warren, we had Molly Bish disappear. She was abducted from her lifeguard post. Okay. So this is really, really tugging at our hearts. We're trying to figure out what to do. We don't have feet on the ground up there, okay? At that time, we didn't know you. We didn't know Trooper Benoit. We didn't really know anybody. We put together a bit of a partial profile. We sent it out. We contacted John Bish. John Bish put us in touch with Robert Benoit, State Trooper. Through Rob Benoit, we met you. And then that's how this whole thing started. And what I have to begin to tell the audience is that it was the beginning of many, many, many conversations. And this is a tale that has not been told up until now on the Molly Bish case, on Molly's murder. We were constantly conferencing and talking and going over this case at the time for hours and hours. I mean, I don't know how many hours we logged with you on the phone. I mean, it was just unbelievable because you were obsessed with this case. Am I right?
Yes, yeah, I was obsessed with that case and another, but yes.
Yeah, and that obsession came from the Holly Perinin case as well, because you had 3 young daughters at the time, 3 little girls, and it really affected you when Holly Perinin was grabbed and murdered. And now 7 years later, here you go again. You've got Molly Bish, a young girl, beautiful girl, and she's grabbed, abducted, and we don't know where she's at this point. This is the beginning. We don't know where she's at. Now, at this time, I also want to offer, our condolences to the Bish family and all the friends, family and friends of the Bish family that were affected by the trauma that took place in this case, because this case, this Molly Bish case, had completely overwhelming trauma of the entire area. I mean, somebody is snatching little girls, and we can go back with that. We can go back to Holly Prina. We can even go back further than that. But talk about your obsession and how it started with Holly and worked into Molly, because you were just, and we knew it in the beginning, you were consumed with this case.
Right. Well, initially, what it was obviously when Molly Bish was abducted, and right away there were people like yourself who saw it right away as an abduction. Um, People started talking, which is so important. People from the community started talking, and someone had come into the police station in North Brookfield and had started talking about Holly Perenian's case with me. And I didn't realize at the time. I mean, I was a 32-year-old, relatively young man at the time. It's 20 years later. I wish I knew then what I know today, John. I would handle things a lot differently. But I was a soldier. I was very mission oriented. And I certainly, like many people, had my demons. But I think because of the age of my daughters and the age of that case, there was definitely something going on with me. But the way I was introduced to stock was, from what I understand, John Bish had given a copy of information you had given to him to Bob Benoit. So Bob Benoit, being a state trooper, knowing I was a go-getter, we had worked several cases in the past, had brought you up to me. So initially, if you recall our conversations, John, it was very touch and go because, a lot of times people try to impute themselves in the case. I personally, even though I was a police officer, I certainly was not working within my purview. I mean, I wasn't. Again, today I might have handled things differently, but initially I was concerned about who you were, but I was intrigued. And when you told me about your connection with Frank Adamson and the fact that he was on your team, I'll be honest, initially when you put me in contact with him and I spoke with him, I wasn't sure it was actually Frank Adamson, because I had learned about Frank years earlier when I was studying in Nuremberg, Germany, when I was in the military, of Green River. I had a great college professor named Ron Simpson. I used to spend a lot of time with him. And, he talked about Green River. He talked about Frank Adamson. He knew everything about that case, that you could know reading from articles, obviously not being there. So immediately, you, Stock, your team, I believed in you. It opened doors. And then we began having conversation. And, not only did you become a colleague, you became a very close friend because, John, it's been 20 years. I'm sure you'll get into the phone call later, but, it's been a wonderful relationship, very rewarding. And, I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't change anything.
Me neither. Me neither. Hold it right there and we'll get back. So, Timmy, the one thing that happened is that you really immersed yourself into this case. I mean, I never saw anybody go so deep in any of the other cases I ever worked. I never had a colleague go so deep and be so passionate and maybe even too overwhelmed with this case, And you mentioned, you have your demons. I mean, we all have our demons. I think most of us that we have to deal with one way or the other. I look at the trauma, the trauma that resonated from this case, and tell me how that trauma affected you, because you were nonstop completely immersed. You're still thinking about Holly Preenan. You've got Molly Bish missing. I mean, what is going through your mind? What is going through your mind?
Uh, John, I just thought that, you know, I just thought that maybe I could help. I thought, I mean, I can internalize it now and I could see, I never lost perspective of who the victims were in this case. Obviously, a whole community's victimized. People look more closely at their children. Children learn about things that they shouldn't know about at young age. But the true victims are the families, and obviously the person who's injured or in this case killed, and the families. And this goes on generationally, as you well know. And there's a lot of misdirected anger, John. I mean, I'm guilty of it. I mean, I was angry at people that I shouldn't have been angry at. But again, I was a 32-year-old, relatively young man. In retrospect, I feel very blessed for the relationships I've had, and I feel sorry for some of the perhaps the impression that I put on people, because I was kind of that bull in the china shop. I wasn't the most politically, sound person. I mean, I would just go off and. I think that trauma came not getting into it, but some of my own experiences that I'd rather not get into when I was younger. Growing up in an Irish alcoholic family, John, you have things that go on, right?
Don't I
Uh,
know?
yeah, but it just drove me. It motivated me. I thought I could make a difference. I mean, I think that's why, it's terrible what law enforcement is going on with law enforcement today. I'm a firm believer that 99% of law enforcement out there, and to include the Mass State Police, one of the finest organizations in the country, they do an amazing job. And they're painted with a broad brush. You have a small fraction that may go beyond their means, um, and some that totally go over the top. But unfortunately, for that 1%, 99 are painted with a broad brush. So, but and I think I was guilty of it. I think I was guilty of it too. That I was angry with law enforcement. I was angry with the political aspects. I mean, we're supposed to just find probable cause, and when you feel you've reached probable cause, unfortunately, at a district attorney level, it's an elected position. They do not want to take a case on like this unless they have a smoking gun, because it could end their political career. So you're out there trying to, shake branches and do the best you can. Uh, so yeah, there was trauma, John. I mean, obviously, I changed my career. And for the record, I mean, I know it's been stated, I was never fired from a law enforcement job ever. I was never even asked to leave. I simply had enough. And for people who can put in 20, 25 years or more, God bless them, because it is a thankless, very difficult job, very difficult. And we're fortunate to have them out there.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you said is entirely correct. 99% of law enforcement is there for the right reason and really cares about the job in the community. I mean, there's no question about it. And especially with the Molly Bish case. I mean, I know there was controversy. I know there was criticism against you. I know there was all kinds of anger being projected all over the place, misdirected. Again, I look at this case in general being the biggest whodunit in New England history, and I think it just caused a lot of people, for a lot of reasons, to harbor a lot of anger, go off the rails, and I think that it was just that much of an emotionally charged case. I think there isn't anybody out there that we knew or we were connected to or who worked this case, and people we don't even know, that did not want to solve this case. But it was like pretty much almost unsolvable the way it all winded up. But I won't say that it's not solvable with all the progress that's been made with DNA testing and genealogy and everything else, I think we still got a good shot of solving this. Timmy, the one story that I think really needs to be told is what happened and how you ended up finding the bathing suit, Molly Bish's bathing suit, which eventually led to her body and her being returned to her family for a mass and a burial. Take me through that. I mean, I know you were in Sturbridge. I know you were having emotional problems, but you did not like what was going on with you and whoever there. You decided to leave, and you decided to still work the Bish case, even though you were not in law enforcement anymore. You had left, okay? But you continued to work this case, and I was right there. I saw every bit of it, even though you weren't being paid a nickel, okay? You were taking odd jobs, trying to keep it going, make a living, support 3 children, all right? And still very dogged about this case and just wouldn't stop. You were just wouldn't stop. I mean, it was like, you know, the Energizer Bunny on steroids.
Well, John, I think what happened was I was in North Brookfield, and I was kind of in a cocoon there because I had been there long enough where I had formed personal relationships with the chief, with the deputy chief, with the sergeant. I could have hung my hat there and did my 25 years and got out. But you know, I was recruited to Sturbridge. I had formed a relationship with a gentleman who I don't think he'd mind me using his name. He was a chief of police, Tom Ford. And Tommy had given me a bunch of information on a case out of Sturbridge, Polly's case. And we had talked about me potentially going over there. I went over there, and it wasn't long. I mean, I realized it just wasn't a good fit for me. I went from a situation where it was a, you know, take-home cruiser. You know, I could pretty much, you know, I could pretty much do what I wanted, to a very, very regimented. Not that I'm against it, but it was like I had taken a step back. But needless to say, um, I had all this information I had obtained when I was still on job after leaving Sturbridge, and it was sitting there. And I had already had a relationship with you and with Stock, and I knew that you were concerned because you saw me going south. And you used to always tell me I'm your friend, not your therapist. Um, but would have extensive conversations. And it was actually you and Stock that you said, John, put pen to paper, put pen, and don't type it. Write. Begin to write as a catharsis to heal.
Get your
Even though
feelings out on paper. Get your
feelings
feelings
out
out
on
on
paper,
paper.
because I was angry. I was angry,
Yeah.
um, and and I think justifiably so to a certain extent. The way things went down in Sturbridge, but so I began to write as a catharsis, kind of just to get my feelings out about everything: the loss of my parents, divorce, the cases, but mostly focusing on, what was drawing me to these cases. And that would cause us to continue to have conversation. You and I would continue to have conversation on a weekly basis, sometimes 2, 3, 4 times a week. And
Constantly.
yeah, and you brought Frank Adamson in, and and I talked to everybody about it. Even though I did have my PI license in Rhode Island, um, I just talked to everybody. If anyone asks why you asking, well, I'm writing a book. It was never been a book, John. It was just a means for me to ask people, question people. Well, I ended up meeting this girl. Her last name Boudreau. God, her first name escapes me. I think it was Sherry Boudreau. And and I had talked to her about it, and she had said, you should talk to my brother. So I went and I talked to her brother, and all this is documented. There's statements to the effect, and I went and talked to him, and I sat at the table with him, and he brought up the bathing suit, and I was like, okay, and I said, you got to take me to the suit. So we made arrangements to see the suit, but I called you initially first, and I said, John, this is what's going on, and this is all I need is for something like this. And I can remember you had Frank Adamson call me, and you both were on the phone. And Frank said, "Tim, it's a bathing suit where a bathing suit doesn't belong. Who
A
cares?
bathing suit where a bathing suit doesn't
Doesn't
belong.
belong." And it was right along. And I verified it with the information you had sent to John Bish, went to Bob Benoit, came to me, and you had said in it, John, I don't know if you recall this, in it, it says, look near hunting clubs. Well, where Ricky described it, he said it's right up on this hill at Nettamessic, above Nettamessic, which is a hunting club.
That was a profile. I'm sorry. That was a profile that I truly believe we had divine intervention on. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I had to bring that out because we never again, I don't think, ever put any kind of geographic, attached any kind of geographic situations to our profile, okay? But on that one, we did. And then we talked about a hunting club. We talked about the side of a mountain. So please continue and talk about that and how that.
So
that was surreal when we heard that. It was surreal.
yeah, I mean, again, I was apprehensive, and I remember I called Bob Benoit. I couldn't get in touch with him. I called Cheryl Benoit, told me, call her father. So I remember making the phone call to John, and it was weird. I mean, one of his responses was, "I have to protect you and Bob." John knew, the Bishes knew that Bob and I had an interest in this, and that really struck me. He had to protect me. I was like, protect me from what? Now I've been around long enough to realize what happens with people who find evidence; they become suspect, right? Well, Ricky Boudreau, to his credit, was the one who had found it initially. Mm-hmm. But it didn't click with him. It just didn't have the same meaning being a hunter that it would someone like me who had a profile and had my experience. So that's kind of what dovetailed together. But, lo and behold, what John Bish had said to me, I did come to realize, what he meant. This case was much bigger than me, much bigger than Bob, much bigger. This thing was huge.
Bigger than all of us.
Yeah, millions of dollars were put into this case. So, if you're in a political position, how do you explain to people, we spent $1 million over the last 3 years and we didn't come up with this. And then this guy, 2 weeks, who talked to her father and this old trooper, I mean, it doesn't pass the smell test. It doesn't look good. So from their perspective, I can understand, and they do control the narrative. I mean, I spoke to a local reporter who will remain nameless, and I was told, if I don't write what the DA wants, I don't get in the DA's office. So much for the freedom of the press, right? So, so even though you want to do the right thing, you also want to protect yourself. You want to protect your family, and I'll tell you, John, I mean, I was going to wait a bit later. It's all worth it. The end result is it's all worth it. Granted, there's not a conviction in this case, and the last thing you want is to anyway adversely or hurt the investigation, or worse, hurt the prosecution. You don't want to do that. But it's all worth it. It's worth the ridicule, John. It's worth the humiliation. It's worth being marginalized. It's worth your name being dragged through the mud. It's worth your children coming up to you and saying, "Dad, I'm being questioned like weird stuff in school." Because for a family, and this is only what I've read, John, I've never experienced it, to never have to look for their child, I couldn't imagine not knowing and continuing looking. There has to be some kind of closure. There has to be some sort of at least closure, not a conviction, but at least the final chapter of the life of the victim.
Yeah, I look at the Bish family, and I'll tell you, over the years, I mean, I think about it constantly, this case constantly. We all do. But the torture that they went through, in the early years, and I'm not sure if this quote is correct or not, but I think Maggie said she feels like she's between hell and hope. And hope can be a real, hope can be a real bastard, because hope can drag things out and drag things out and drag things out. And, you know, not that there's ever closure in these cases. Not that there's ever closure, okay? But if a family has a murdered child and they have the opportunity of having that child's body or remains brought back to them, that starts to cause some finality, okay, in the family system. And there's no more hoping to see her over here, see her over there. I heard she was in Florida. Somebody said they saw her in California, you know, and then the detectives are running, and you're just living on this hope, and you're being let down one time after another, after another, after another. I mean, this is torturous to a family. So knowing that there's no such thing as closure, and knowing that when a family has a murdered child, and it leaves a perpetual hole in their hearts. And if they have other children, I mean, you know, the family can cope with it over time and cope with it better over time, but they never get over it completely, and there's no such thing as closure. But having, you know, some kind of finality through a mass and a burial is a hell of a lot better than, you know, being dragged around for years and years and years. And there's families that are going through this right now. I know if John Walsh has said this 1,000 times, that there's nothing worse than, you know, not knowing what's happened to your child, you know. And I really think that because of your actions and the important role you played, and I truly believed it was divine intervention, as I said here. I mean, I think it helped bring you know, some finalization, if you will, you know, to the quest of looking for Molly. We got to focus on now, and we'll focus on it as long as stock's in business, as long as I'm alive. I know as long as you're alive, as long as Bob Benoit's alive, I'm sure as long as, you know, the state police are going, we have to seek justice for the family. And that's something that, you know, we watch all the time. What's been the DNA results up in Massachusetts? What does District Attorney Early have? And surely he's trying the best he can to try and, you know, bring justice for the family. Other people are involved. And see, here's where I think we went off the rails. Pretty much everybody is involved to try and bring justice to the family. It's just that through the trauma or for other reasons, there's just a lot of anger and misdirected anger and frustration and everything else. Sadly, Molly was murdered. Thankfully, you were instrumental in helping to bring her remains home.
So were you, John. So was Stock.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that, but nowhere, we don't take any credit for that. The other part of it is we also, keeping our eye on things, see the good that Molly is spreading on the world through her death, because it looks like Heather and the rest of the family have some good things going up there with the fingerprinting of kids and Foundation. Photographs and stuff and whatever else is going on up there. So that's pretty positive. But Timmy, this is a story of you dealing with your demons, you going over the edge emotionally, you're crashing and burning, going from a well-paid investigator with law enforcement to, I remember talking to you when you were on jobs for $7 an hour. I remember vivid as yesterday, the security job at like $9 or $10 or $11 an hour, trying to support the three kids, and you know, just you going through all this and all this controversy, and really a lot of criticism came down on you. Again, you faced extreme controversy, and you crashed, burned, but how you rose from the ashes. I mean, this is truly a remarkable story from where you were then to where you are now. Do you want to talk about that?
John, I've been blessed. I somewhere along the line, I stopped trying to steer the boat. I just row, and I do have a higher power. I'm serious.
That's a good. I like that. Good. Good.
But you just got to chop wood, and I have an amazing wife who's very supportive. We were at the Iditarod this year. She'll tell you I'm crazy because
I know you're crazy.
I saw this 70 something year old man doing the 1,000-mile dog track up in Alaska. And I told my wife, I said, Andrea, I want to do that. And she's like, what's wrong with you? And John, I'm doing Mount Washington tomorrow. And that something about that drives me. Nothing great comes from being overly cautious. Nothing. You have to be able, I think, to say, and there is a certain level of unselfishness, but to be honest, perhaps there was some level of selfishness. It's not, it's not that you ever want credit, John. It's that the narrative's controlled, and that's when you see other people taking credit for something when they had very little involvement, or when you're marginalized. I mean, it is true, John, that I did happen to, as the story goes, is what I've been told. And you minimize and exploit whatever you want. I happened upon Rick Boudreau's sister, and happened upon Rick Boudreau. Yeah, well, I also was a small town cop who happened upon John Kelly and Stock and Frank Adamson. And with all due respect, I don't know anybody in New England or the United States, for that matter, who has over 40 bodies found while he was in charge of Green River, taught body search recovery.
It's up around 50 now. Yeah.
Yeah, to the FBI.
Yeah.
I mean, there's not a lot of people that have that credibility.
Yeah.
I'd be talking to Frank Adamson on the phone, who's a humble guy.
Oh yeah, very humble.
And I'd get some, 23, 24-year-old cop who was too busy to give me the time of day. So, it's just strange. I know I'm all over the map, John.
You're not.
I don't do a lot of interviews anymore. I did when it first went down, I did some of that, but that's almost a lifetime ago to me. I mean, I have reestablished myself. I have a very good life. I have been blessed. I have good friends. I have a great family. I have an amazing dog, actually. I just try to take it slow. My wife and I started our own business. I've traveled constantly. There's a big world out there. I still stay in Massachusetts. I like New England. But who knows where I'll end up, John, who knows what tomorrow may bring. But going back to that, John, if I can implore people to do one thing, you never know the information that you have, how it's going to dovetail in with everything else that the police may have. So, if you're nervous about coming forward, or you're scared you're going to be put under an umbrella of suspicion, don't be. It may be tough for a little bit. You may be questioned. But you know what? You may be responsible for bringing justice to a child that was murdered. Wouldn't that be worth it? Isn't that worth it, John? Isn't that why
it's invaluable? There's no question about it.
What's the old saying? The harder I work, the luckier I become. That's just how it is. You just work hard, stay focused, try to be a good person. You're going to slip up. You're going to make mistakes. It's human nature. Lord knows I've made many, many mistakes.
We all have, Timmy.
But for some reason, I've been blessed. So.
You have. And I totally believe that in this case, as I said a couple times earlier, we've had a lot of divine intervention. let's hold it right there, and I'll be right back because I have a couple other questions for you because you still haven't stopped working this case. Timmy, you still haven't stopped working this case. Tell me about your new group of retired law enforcement guys that are detectives and just cops, plain guys who've retired, and they will not sleep until they bring some kind of resolution to the Holly Perinin or the Molly Bish case. I think this is beautiful. You guys still haven't stopped. Talk about that to me.
Well, I don't think they'd mind me saying it. I know they do not want their names mentioned or anything like that, but they had some involvement when they were on the job. They're now retired. There's over 100 years experience between the four of us.
Over 100 years experience, yeah?
Yeah. Oh, they're older guys, but, you know, they still have an interest because they have a tie to the communities. They're from the area. They've raised children in the area. They've worked law enforcement in the area. And, you know, obviously so people may be more comfortable because they don't know them as detective so-and-so or officer so-and-so. It may be George or Fred or Tom at the coffee shop. But a lot of times, as you all know, as even in this case we're talking about, Molly's case, that's how the information is brought up. And, you know, and as you know, generationally, as things go on, a lot of times these relationships, especially where there's dysfunction and there's trauma, they break down. So there's no more an allegiance. There's information that people may be holding on to that could come out at a coffee shop, could come out somewhere. Obviously, that information will be turned right over to the proper authorities. But you know, they're just you know, they're retired cops, they're fathers, they're grandfathers, they're just people who care. And as you all know, most people in law enforcement will have one or two cases that really stick with them. And coming from these communities, these cases, and when I say these, Holly's case and Molly's case in particular, are both very, you know, important to them. So, you know, we meet on a semi-regular basis, and we just talk and discuss things. And yeah, I mean, uh, two of them I believe, are still licensed investigators in the state of Massachusetts.
And it's so important. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, John, that's it. Go ahead.
It's so important to keep putting it out there because I called you the other day and I was talking to you. I mean, we got a comment, okay, over our YouTube site on somebody who said the day before Molly was grabbed at the pond, he was there. He was actually a classmate of Molly, said he was there. How true this is, I don't know, because we gave the guy the opportunity to get in touch with us. We're still waiting to hear from him. I hope if he sees this video, he's going to reconnect with us. I hope he sees what kind of guy you are. He knows what kind of guy the other guys are from what you're saying. But it's important for him to reach out to us. I gave him my private Gmail. I told him I would have him contact you guys, okay? And you would be respectful to him. But he's talking about seeing somebody in the woods that day, okay, that was focused on Molly. This is the day before she was abducted. We have no idea who he is. He didn't come across on our stock site. He commented on our YouTube site. We are waiting to hear from him, and I would ask him now if he's watching us, because he obviously follows us, to please contact us. Please get in touch with us if you have any idea on what the person looks like or who the person might be. And I don't think you did know who the person was. You said that, but you described the person and you said you could identify the person. I don't know if you could identify them 20 years later now, but just your idea of what they look like could be extremely important, because these cases need to be solved. And if you do get in touch with us, believe me when I tell you, we'll be treated with the utmost respect, okay? With that being said, and how important it is to keep the word out there and to keep trying to seek justice for Molly and Holly, is there anybody at all, Timmy, that you want to thank
There's a lot of people I'd like to thank, John, but off the top of my head, I would say, I think the Massachusetts State Police did an amazing job, incredible job under a very difficult situation. They were always very professional with me. Um, I think the Bish family, especially Maggie. Maggie had said something about me in the newspaper that really meant a lot to me. Um, and as a whole, I think what the Bish family is doing with their foundation and moving forward, I think that's a wonderful thing. I think locally, some of the local reporters, Kim Ring was always very kind. I think she always tried to keep this case out in the forefront. And Stock, I mean, Stock has just been, John, you personally and your team have always, been very understanding. And I'd implore any police officer or law enforcement, if they're involved in a case, and sometimes it's hard. They don't want you to break ranks, and it's just that's the culture of law enforcement. They keep their cards close to their chest, and you know, they say it's because they don't want to negatively impact the investigation. I can understand if they have corroborating evidence that they want to be able to corroborate that evidence. They don't want that evidence out there. I can understand that. So they don't want anybody to know during an interview or interrogation course, that interview or interrogation, they'd be able to pull that out, and then they'd know this is the suspect. But there are professionals out there like yourself, John, that I would feel more than comfortable sharing information with you, your team, and you offer insight that's sometimes outside the box of law enforcement, which is it's good to hear, and sometimes it's good to hear just to keep going, just keep going. Um, and the thing is, it's very hard to I remember hearing one time, you got to stay somewhat detached from these cases. How the hell do you stay detached?
It's not easy.
How
It's
do you
not
stay?
easy.
It's you can't. It's like you can't stick your toe in it. You're either all in or you're not. The clock doesn't matter. You just go. Um, and truth shall seek the light of day, John. And if
Yeah.
you stay after it, I think amazing things happen. And I think I'd be remiss if I didn't say that we're taught to be very analytical, especially nobody wants you getting on the stand and not talking about specifics, not analytics. They want you to be by the numbers, this. But I believe there are other forces involved, just like you said, what you call it spiritual, call it whatever, but things happen for a reason. Things happen for a reason, John. And, everything in divine order, you can't control everything. You just got to do the best you can every day. And, sometimes things happen. Sometimes things happen, positive things, you know?
Yeah, it seems there are no coincidences. I mean, if you didn't go on the journey you went through and leave Sturbridge, under whatever conditions or situations, and end up without a job, there's no way you're instrumental in finding the bathing suit and ultimately helping bring Molly home. Okay. So, I mean, it's funny how these things just happen. I mean, it's just destiny, and I truly believe there was a major spiritual intervention on this case. I'd like to thank everybody that was involved in the Bish case and tried to help the Bish family. I want to thank our thanks go out to everybody. Stark's thanks, my thanks goes out to everybody that was involved in trying to help the Bish case, because I know that, the main reason was everybody wanted to help. Okay. There was a lot of trauma. There was a lot of misdirected anger. There's still a lot of anger, I believe. I think a lot of people, went off in different directions for different reasons. But I think ultimately it's not about personalities. You know what I mean? It's more about, principle. And I think the major principle was to help the family, to try and find Molly, which was accomplished. Molly came home because of you and Woodrow and the work you put into it, and the search team that put the effort into an unbelievable, amazing effort they put into bringing Molly home. And I just think that, you know, forgetting about all the controversy that went on, two things were accomplished. Molly was found, Molly was brought home. Now we focus and have to keep focusing on getting justice for Molly and Holly. Okay. And I can't commend you enough, you and the team and the other guys that are doing the work you're doing. With that being said, too, we're going to have a contact number. I guess you'll put a link to it or whatever afterwards. Timmy, what about a number? Is there any number, any way to contact your group, or do you want to get back to us on that?
I'd rather get back to you on that. I know these guys are pretty much like they don't want any recognition for anything that may happen. They're dark. They just want justice, John. They just want to see the right thing done. So on how they're going to go about that, that's in discussion. But
maybe an email number. Okay.
Yeah.
Email address. Yeah.
But I appreciate that, John.
Okay. So is there anything else that you want to talk about? I mean, you know, you came out of this whole situation under an umbrella of suspicion, and you rose from the ashes. You have a very successful business. You're very happy. You're very content. I see you being extremely successful, being very happy today. I mean, is there anything at all you want to say before we break at this point? Because I want to do another show with you, and I want to talk about people of interest, because I know we have a person or two of interest that we want to put out there, and I'm just wondering if there's anything else you want to say today. You really did it all, and I'm so happy to see you so happy and successful.
Thank you, John. No, I think I'm pretty good, John. I just again, like I said, I was a bull in a china shop, and I think that I needed some time away from everything just to kind of figure things out, because there was a time when this was going on that I was a very intense, focused laser beam, and and that people can find that offensive. They can find that all over the top, and quite frankly, justifiably so. But I'm in a different place today. I've moved on. The only reason, in fact, that I even kind of stepped back was because I was asked to by some seasoned guys who wanted my involvement. And I stay close to you, John, and I know the stuff you're involved in. But that's about it. Other than that, if I offended anyone in the family, or if I was over the top, I apologize. It was just where I was at in life at the time,
Yeah, and that's excellent, and that's certainly all you can do. I mean, I want to tell you, from me and from Stock, we were honored to work with you, and we can't thank you enough. At this point in time, I want to thank our audience. Thank you so much for viewing, for all your subscriptions, for all your info. We can't thank you enough for all your comments. Most important thing, thank you, Timmy, for being a guest today. And, to all of you, most importantly, stay safe out there, be careful, and make it a great day. Thanks, Timmy. God bless.
Good work, John. Take care. God bless you.